All right. Hello, everyone. Oh. All right. Well, I finally was able to set stuff up on time this time. So, unfortunately, in my constant quest for getting the lighting right on these streams, I have a lamp illuminating the book, which is actually right next to my monitor. So every time I look at chat, I will get blinded by this lamp, which is attempting to cast light onto the book. Hello, Afree. Yep, happy as always to stream the art book. Today we are going over Fortuna. Let me pop up the table of contents once again, just to see what's on the schedule. But I think the Fortuna section will basically take up the whole thing. Let's see, 16 pages, so it's a little shorter than these sections typically are. But I don't want to start into the next one just because, the last time we tried to do that, it sort of broke everything, timing-wise. So, if we do finish early, I don't know, I might just ramble a bit, or end the stream early. But we're just going to be covering Fortuna this week. Next week is Necrolisk, that'll be exciting. And then we start to move on to these story beats, the New War, the Zariman, the Duviri Paradox. And then there's two more sections. The Arsenal, which is just like a bunch of weapons, and Gallery, which is... I actually still don't know what Warframe in the Wild means. I still have not flipped ahead to that section to find out. But let's go ahead and get started. We've got this nice, gorgeous picture of the Orb Valis landscape. This looks like some of the stuff that was. So we'll see it, I'm sure, as we go through this section. But the Orb Valis, Venus, and Fortuna they changed a couple of I mixed my sentences together. They changed a couple of times and changed a little bit from iteration to iteration as DE sort of developed it. So, and then I think I will probably have some opportunities to discuss exactly how that happened, and maybe that'll give us some padding on the timing there. But this looks like actually one of the earlier iterations of design, even though it does look very similar to how it ultimately turned out. You've got the fungus. The fungus are actually not... Maybe this is like a big overhanging fungus, but I'm actually not sure. These look more like, I don't know, lichens or moss or something like that. So I'm actually not seeing a lot of fungus. The plants that you see here do look like tepa nodules, which you typically only see in the caves of Venus. And, oh, you know what? Right here, this is a fungus with like the spore sac hanging down. That's definitely what that is. And then here you have, well, actually, here you've got like a moon or something in the sky. Venus does not have moons. So I actually, did they just put this in here? Yeah, it's definitely some sort of like celestial object, but there's nothing you can see from Venus that's like that. So, whatever. Alright, here's the foreword by Mike Sebalge, lead concept artist. I really like Mike Sabalja's stuff, but I've only ever seen it on TennoCon art panels. I've never been able to find his like portfolio because I don't think he posts it online. But his work is very interesting, and he does a lot of like the stuff I've seen at TennoCon has been, his work has been some of the more out there concepts. So I would be excited to see like his work, and maybe we'll see some in here. Fortuna was an interesting design exercise, exploring lots of fun classic sci-fi themes with a subtle retro vibe. Solaris is a subterranean colony oppressed by corpus debt, and the creation of the orb valves really helped to visually expand the Warframe universe with its space trucker aesthetic. The art style really lined up well in helping tell the Fortuna story. The whole Fortuna update, it's very interesting because it's going in like a lot of different directions, I feel like. Because you've got the Corpus thing, you've got the Solaris thing, which is related, and but yeah, there's a bunch of different aesthetics. Venus has its own, very unique color palette. It's a very interesting update. So here we're starting with, I believe these are Keith Thompson sketches, at least these first two. Not sure about the rest of them. They're very clean and technical, but this shaded pencil style is very much Keith Thompson. So here we've got the one of the weeping posts, and this one, or the weeping towers, and this one seems like it's been completely just covered in the goop, the coolant that comes out of it. So you can't really see a lot of features of the underlying building, except for the parts that stick out. The two arms in the front, the rings on the side, and then this structure here is like a tunnel or like a crane or a support thingy. And to me, this kind of looks like a corpus, like the corpus are trying to investigate this. It doesn't look like part of the original Weeping Post. But yeah, you can't really see any of the underlying structural details because it's just, covered in the coolant as it's running out. That's, solidified and hardened, it looks like. Here we have the big elevator inside Fortuna that takes you up to the surface. Fortuna's a bit more, I would say, closed off and claustrophobic than this sketch implies. However, there is a lot, you do see, you do have the sort of stairs, you have the rivers of coolant, you even have this truck, by the way. So Utico sits, the platform I think should be a little larger, the platform right in front of the window, the elevator door, and then Utico sits right here. But you even have this truck, which is there in Fortuna, and then the back door to where you get the profit taker bounties and stuff are over here. And then there's a bit more of an escarpment or a shelf between this platform and the rest of Fortuna that's down. But yeah, this is, you usually don't look at it from this angle, especially post New War. Of course, Fortuna, the city Fortuna is the biggest change pre and post New War, as any of you who have played it are well familiar. So nowadays, I think there's more stuff crisscrossing the main alleyway, and so you rarely see the elevator, I guess, from this perspective, because this is zoomed out, and also with the full vertical look. So this is a really interesting view of the elevator. All right, here we've got different sketches for the Buzzard ship, and with a sketched guy for sale, for scale, with flexing his biceps. I have no idea why they use this little cartoon here, but this looks like the model of the Buzzard they eventually. Wait, is it? It is, because Condor is the normal Corpus drop ship. And so this is the Buzzard, which, those are both scavenger birds, in case you didn't know why they were called that. The Corpus generally tend to name their stuff after animals. You see it like that in the abandoned debt colony. The elevator, you're right. Yes, you do get, so Fortuna, and I don't really know how much of an opportunity we'll have to talk about that, but for any of you who have delved into Fortuna's story, and I should make a video about this because there's actually a lot of detail there, and I think after you play Vox Solaris, you just forget about it. But the current town, city, colony, whatever of Fortuna is like not the original. It's called Deck 9. Yeah, I think it's Deck 9. You have to like read the Solaris writing on the walls to figure that out. No one actually says that. And then there's an older one that's called Deck 12, and that was destroyed in an earlier incident that like all of the characters will allude to, and you can actually find it out on the Orvalis. It's way off to the east on the corner of the map. You can see like the upper entrance, and then if you do the Exploiter or Bounty which takes you underground, you actually get into like the Solaris part, like the Fortuna looking part of Deck 12, and it's basically a clone of Deck 9, the Fortuna that we know. It's just overgrown with mushrooms and stuff, because it's been abandoned for years and years. And so you do get a better look at the elevator if you go to Deck 12. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, this is the current Buzzard. This one, looks a lot more like the Condor, although it still looks kind of funky. This one is an interesting version. It's got like a cylindrical thing instead of the tray. It is funny because this is really just like a tray and then these like wings, which are some sort of propulsion system. This one has the wings, but instead of the tray, it just has like some sort of cylindrical closing container, which looks a lot like what the resource caches, the Corpus resource caches on the Orvalis look like. So I guess they might have reused part of that. So here we've got these are different designs for what's his name? I really should have like revisited, just like looked over some of the stuff from Smokefinger. This guy, Smokefinger, the gem seller, he's got this cart that as you approach it like unfolds to show all the gems. I'm pretty sure it does that. It's been so long since I've actually done anything in Fortuna, but I'm pretty sure his cart like folds up, and then as you approach it, like unfolds and shows all the gems inside. So you can see this is like the folded up version, and then here it is with like this top part falls open and little panels slide out from the side, and this pops up. And I think these are all like, on the left you have the closed versions, and then you have the open versions here. And then you've got little sketches of a guy, this is not Smokefinger, but this is the character. This is going to be the character. And he's like holding open his coat with like a bunch of gems inside, like, hey kid, want to buy some gems? That's a really funny image, and it's kind of a shame that they didn't... they gave everyone such like big personalities, even Smokefinger, and so. But it would have been really funny if they had kept this little this thing of like, hey kid, want to buy some gemstones? It's just really funny to me. But if you go and see like the TennoCon reveal and then see the dev streams that they had, because TennoCon is when they showed it off and they were like, hey guys, and they would like walk you through Fortuna, and then there were a couple of dev streams in between that and the launch, and each time they showed off Fortuna it was like different, and the characters especially, they had like the gun booth and the MOA booth and the mining booth, but the NPCs who were there were like different each time. At one point Boone was the I think he started off as the the MOA guy, and the kit gun had no personality. I think it was like a male Solaris too. Although I guess it's hard to what even is gender if you're a Solaris, which Tinker explores because she's trans. But yeah. So it's not surprising to me that they. What that is also to say, it's not surprising to me that they didn't have Smokefinger here. It actually even says work in progress, just scribbled on here, because all of the characters, the NPCs of Fortuna, appear to have been finalized fairly late into that process. So here you've just got. This is like the upper. This is the structure that is on the top of the elevator that is on the surface, and so this is what you head towards to get back into Fortuna. So this is the main elevator. You've got like a big cargo ramp here. I wish this whole thing did more. Like if you could see trucks loading and unloading, or some of these the bits on the side like we're moving or doing stuff, I feel like that would be more interesting, because Fortuna is... I think a lot of people don't think about this, but Fortuna is like an active industrial hub. Nathaniel is making like a lot of money off of Venus, his Venus project, and that's why he puts up with all the Solaris, because they are like nothing but trouble to him constantly. But they're actually like hard workers. It's part of their culture is just working hard, and he has like a lot of business interests. Fortuna appears to be like a major shipping hub for some reason. There's factories. Usually the Corpus use like auto factories, so I don't actually know why it's better for Nathaniel to have like a factory with people assembling things by hand, but he has that. There's farming centers, which I would imagine do more than just supply Fortuna with food and maybe make food for off-world, because Nora Knight talks about this a little bit, how they're like experimenting with food. So and then of course there's like the research lab and the Temple of Prophet maybe as a pilgrimage site. So the whole Orvalis and Fortuna is like a really big profit center and industrial center for Nathaniel. So I would like it. I would have liked this to just show more activity in general. To see, if you basically have to sort of figure this out, honestly, from dialogue and like playing the bounties, and Utico will be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we're gonna disrupt it. Like if there was nothing going on, then the bounties would not be doing anything. But yeah, there's like a lot going on Venus, and you just don't see it as a player. But that's, I think, because DE didn't put in the resources to show it. Because usually when we say there's a lot going on that the player doesn't see, it's because the player doesn't have a reason to see those things. The Warframe world is a lot bigger than just Tenno going around and shooting stuff. But in this case, I think you should be seeing these things. I think that you're in a position as someone who's walking around Fortuna to see like the hustle and bustle. It's just hard, I guess, for DE to add in that extra stuff. And to be fair, it is minor. It's set dressing essentially. I just wish it was set dressing that was there. I always get confused on which side the elevator door is because the cargo entrance looks bigger. Yes, that's also yes, that's true. I feel that definitely happened to me. Fortuna, I think, took the longest to get used to. Because when these open worlds came out, and like everyone would be doing that and only that for like many months, So I was like doing my Orvalis bounties. I was like hunting and mining and exploring. And so, I've put in my time on the Orvalis, but it was, as with all the other open worlds, and I think Fortuna was the hardest one to get used to. and partly because it's the entrance is in the middle, like the hub is in the middle of the map, and I think DE was like, oh yeah, that was a bad idea. Because I literally had to bring up the big mini map to be like, where is this? And they tried to like make the big plume of dark smoke, but you can't see that from, if you're far enough away, you can't see it. Or if it's like behind a mountain. So on the plains, it was really easy. You're like, oh, go in this direction. Go towards the tower. There's nowhere you can be on the plains where you can't see the tower of the Unum, and you just go in that direction. So, yeah. And then the Necrolisk, well, that's its own thing. Here we've got what looks like to be the stalks of a fungus or mushroom plant, but like just the trunk or the stalk of it. Here we've got some actual mushrooms. This one interestingly looks basically like the one that made it into the final game. The plume is not big enough. Yeah, the smoke plume that it comes out the top of this to show you where it is. It's not big enough, and it's not like noticeable enough. If it like went all the way up into the sky, like penetrated the whole skybox, it might look funny. But that would be like the only way to do it. So you got your big mushrooms here. You've got these carts. A lot of these things are there's just a lot of pieces in Fortuna and the Orb Valis that are not they're not interactable, which is a shame. But so you've got like these carts. I think there's a few different versions of them, but some of them are like cherry picker lifts or like scissor lifts where they like go up. That's and I think there might be a few other versions of this, but this is just some sort of like a wheeled vehicle that they use for working out on the Orb Valis. This kind of I think this is the same thing. I think this is like the entrance to Fortuna. Yeah, it is. Just from a different angle. This is like sort of like the back. You've got actually like a big truck entrance here. This is like a loading conveyor belt, and so you sort of see a faded in truck here. It's not really part of the drawing. It's like faded in on there, and it's unloading onto this conveyor belt. On the other side over here, which is what you see here, is like an actual like freight entrance where like you could actually drive the truck in here, because I don't think you're supposed to be able to drive the truck in here. Again, this is all sort of moot because none of this moves. But there's like a big entrance here, and then there's like a whole bunch of stuff on the back. I can't really remember it, but it feeds into like there's like a little coolant lake on the back of the elevator entrance, and I think this sort of interfaces with it somehow. It's been a while. I spent a lot of time there because that's how I leveled up my K drive on those pipes before I started doing the races. I think before the races were even added. Alright. So here... Oh. Huh. I have... This is very interesting. I've seen these images, and they're actually in the codex, in the fragments, but these have the faces exposed. And they're not in the ones that I've seen. So, anyway, huge spoiler, by the way. I really should have said this earlier. Don't look at this if you haven't been to Fortuna. But, I guess there's really no way to avoid it. The thing about the Solaris is they have these robotic bodies called rigs. It's like the central part of the body, the torso and abdomen, is replaced with a mechanical thing called a rig. A lot of times you'll see the original arms and legs maybe attached to the rig, but you never see the head. The head is always some weird robotic thing. And the big reveal, which you only find out once you rank up to level 5 with the Solaris, is that their original biological heads are actually inside the chest cavity of the rig. So I'm not sure how well. I mean, I think this is Little Duck, by the way. I think this is probably the easiest way one to see is that the face is like right here, and there's a door. There's like a shutter door covering it, most of the time, because it's like a. I actually don't know how much of a secret this is, but it's a secret from the player. I don't actually know in universe if it's a secret at all, because it doesn't seem like it would be. But that's like a big reveal once you get to rank 5 and you can speak to all of these guys again, and they show you their faces for the first time. But yeah, I just find it really interesting that I've seen these like exact images before with the faces covered up, so it's really funny that there's like 2 different versions of these going around. So there's fragments that you can find out in the Orb Vallis that will tell you the stories of specific Fortuna NPCs: Little Duck, Unico, Legs, the business, Smokefinger, Rude Zood. I think that might be all of them. Ticker. I don't know if I said Ticker yet. But you can like find, and it tells like stories of their lives, and then it unlocks, this type of concept art. By the way, these all look like Keith Thompson drawings. Everything on this page. I believe they're Keith Thompson drawings. I actually think that all of anyway. So this is Little Duck. Obviously, the face and things change between concept and final. But this one is supposed to be Little Duck. I guess she's holding up some sort of. I don't know. It's like a readout, but it's connected to her rig, like via like a telephone wire. These two are like the. Okay, so these are actually these two, and these two are the exact same person. It's just one has the face covered and one does not. I think this is actually supposed to be Smokefinger based on like the mustached face. But this is not what Smokefinger looks like. It's really funny that this face actually has the robot head has a screen that actually shows his face. It's like projecting an image of his face, which is an interesting thing that none of them do. You do wonder about how they approach identity and like their image, their self-conception, because I think a lot of us a face is very important, and they don't have it. They don't show it in their day-to-day lives. So this one that is showing his face is very interesting. It I don't know. It makes me think. But these two are just some of the generic Solaris body types, I guess, because they reuse a lot of the same models. And these are 2 of the common ones you'll see. This one is also used by the business. This one has a big loudspeaker. I don't think the business has a loudspeaker on his head, but he does have a long, narrow head, his robot head. I just attribute all the creative concept art to Keith Thompson. Slightly unfair to the rest of the artists. Yeah, like I said, Keith Thompson's got this sketchy, pencil-y, style. And so that makes it easier to tell. Very rarely are they colored in like these, but you can tell they're in the same style. There's a few of them have distinctive styles, and some of them have, I would say, less distinctive styles. And it's not like I've memorized them all, but I've looked at enough concept art to a lot of the times have kind of a decent idea. But yeah, so this is just the generic Solaris body. This is actually the model that's used for the SU agent who stands outside the elevator, and he doesn't really talk to you until you start doing bounties, because he can give you bounties from the outside of the elevator. This is the same model, and I think, well, because in this one he's wearing like a face mask, and he is when you finally see him, when you get to rank 5 and you see that guy's face. He doesn't have a name, but he's actually voiced by Cam Rogers, who is one of the writers. I think Cam Rogers is like the lead of narrative, or whatever the official title is there. But that guy's wearing a mask in his chest because he's like outdoors, and this guy's also wearing a mask, which is funny. I don't know if this is supposed to be the business or if it's just like the dude who walks around. But this is the same model as the business, but again, it's shared with other things. This is Rude Zud's model. The face, I don't really remember what their faces look like because I didn't pay too much attention to them. Because it was like a big reveal, and then it was like, okay, but I still see the rest. Like, I've been interacting with the rest of you for so long, I don't really care too much about the face. So I actually don't know if the face, how accurate it does look. This face, I think, does look a lot like Yutiko. This is Yutiko, the boss. And I think the face is more or less the same as it is. I can't be sure about Rude Zud here. This looks like it's some sort of protest, because they've got signs, but they're also, like, made out of metal, which is, I feel like, a lot more effort than it's worth. This is, like, got the mustached smoke finger face, although it's a completely different model. This is, like, got a bandana-covered face, and you can't see this guy's face. And then the signs don't actually have any recognizable writing. The Solaris, interestingly, do have their own unique alphabet, but that's not what it said on the sign. This is Boone. I wonder if there's Roki. I know that Roki has a similar set of sketches. These were made by Rosa something, who is the Rosa Lee, who I think has moved on to Soulframe. But she's another one. I think she's like a character concept artist. But yeah, I guess Boone originally had like some like kind of boombox or something. Yeah, okay. Because these are more clearly boom boxes. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have anything like that now. But this is like a crank powered boombox that he also has in this version. This is like a normal boombox with like devil horns. This is like a different boombox. This is a spiky boombox with plushies strapped to it, which is funny. And here he's wearing something on his back, which actually looks more like a K-drive. He's also smoking in this one. What the hell? He's smoking a cigarette. I don't think you can have a kid do that. And he's got a K-drive on the back. In this one, he's actually got like the Alad V cape, which is really funny. I don't know why they give him like the whole cloak. In this one, he's got like a belt of ammunition or something around his waist. Like, what is that for? And Boone mentions that some of the vent kids have like kit guns, like actual like working firearms that are kit guns, and one of them tried to like mug the business, and the business just like disassembled it. Like an action movie hero. I mean, the business is like an action movie hero. Everyone talks about him and is like, oh man, that guy was like insane back in the day. And he's just like, those days are behind me. But he was like some like Jason Bourne, John Wick kind of guy. But yeah, Boone, I guess, very wild character. They went in a bunch of different directions before. Honestly, these are like have more personality than the one that we ended up with. But I am okay with that, honestly, because I don't get too much out of Boone. These are very weird designs for very weird creatures. I guess this one maybe became the Kubradon because, let's see. Is Boone's faction the Kubradons, and then Roki is the Vent Poppers? I'm pretty sure that's the way it goes. They have like different factions of Vent Kid, and I think Boone is the Kubradons, and he's like, there's like a speech bubble here. He's like, this is like a sketch version of this. So maybe this is what the Kubradon is supposed to be, but that doesn't. I mean, we had Kubros before this, so these look like cows or pigs or something like that. Like I'm saying, all of these. These are just weird. All right. Oh. This is very interesting. Oh, by the way, this as I said, this is the if we go over here, this is the resource cache container. And as I said earlier, it does have a similar type of. It's the cylinder with the stacked rings. That's why I thought about it. Yeah, because it's got like these 4 stacked sections that make a cylinder. But yeah, this is the resource cache container thingy. So this thing, especially this part in the middle with these 3 discs, this is used to disable coil drives. If you have the bounty where you have to disable a coil drive, you have to place one of these things down in its path, and it like disables it. You can buy the same thing, and it's called from Ticker as like a decoration, and it's called like a wildlife trap or something like that, and that always confused me because that's not what you use it for. You use it to disable K drives. This is actually a diagram of it capturing wildlife. It's inside of this larger octagonal frame, and it looks like when a pobber or whatever, I mean, a pobber is the example they have here. Yeah, when one of them like hops in, then the octagonal frame like expands and like has like an energy net. Yeah. So this is like the process of it doing it. So it actually expands quite a bit, and the rings can, the ones in the middle can like break apart. And so that it can get even bigger. This is a very cool concept that they didn't really implement at all. They reused the model to make like a EMP thingy, and then they sell you this without, but it doesn't move or do anything. I think maybe the middle rings rotate. I have one of these, but I haven't actually placed it anywhere, so I don't know if it moves. But when you put it down, these 3 rings in the middle, they sort of like rotate. But, I mean, this is cool. This is super interesting. Here you've got another, I'm pretty sure, wildlife trap. Yeah, so you've got sort of like a shutter lens on the, on the first and the third one, and this one is just like a net, like a net cage. They introduced conservation and like animal hunting and stuff with the Fortuna update. It's in all of the open worlds, but it wasn't in the Plains of Eidolon. They had fishing and mining, and that was it. And then when they introduced Fortuna, they were like, now you can hunt for animals. And then they went back and added animals to Plains of Eidolon. They had animals, but all you could do was kill them. You couldn't hunt them. The Kondroks and the Kuakas. So now you can hunt them on the plains, and then when they added Deimos, it had hunting from the start. Conservation, not like killing hunting. But Fortuna was when they invented the concept, and so I'm not really surprised that they didn't have to see like trap and cage concepts here, but then they never used them. They just have they have tranq darts and a drone that takes it off to the sky. So, but yeah, it looks like they did a lot more work, and so this is I was mistaken. I thought that this was another like an animal experimentation thing, which I don't think it is now. But this is like some sort of tech booth thing. You've got like a glass container that is containing like an electrical charge. There's like something inside of it that is sparking, and then you've got cylinders for fluid and stuff. So this is like doing something scientific, which is cool. These look like different designs for some sort of chip or like data storage device. I'm trying to remember if something like this is ever used. We've got Oracle like data storage devices, but this is like a Corpus thing. I don't know if we've ever seen or used any of these. It's possible that they might have been used in the Glassmaker, because there was like a Corpus guy and you had to go through his stuff. So maybe this thing with like these two with like the curve and like the 3 dots, this looks familiar to me, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what it's from. Here's some tools. These are like the mother wrenches. I don't know why they call them mother wrenches, but these are like the big wrenches that the Solaris use. This is the big, I don't know, thing. One of those like Nightwave Cred. Nightwave Cred! This one looks like Nightwave Cred. The second one. Maybe that's... Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Nightwave Cred. Very good, Cyrus. This is the thing that Utico holds, and I think you see some other people using them too. They look like they're using them like soldering irons, but it also kind of looks like a flamethrower. I don't know. It's some sort of tool. This one is like a grasp. This is like a manipulator. It's got like fingers, and it can like grasp stuff. I don't know if we see anything like this except as like a cybernetic hand, because a lot of the Solaris are missing limbs. And so they have robotic versions of the limbs. This one looks even more like a flamethrower. Oh wait, no, this is a saw. I was looking at the other end. This is like a... Right? I actually don't know. This is a rack, I think, to hold the tools, I'm pretty sure. And then, as we talked about, this is the Corpus Resource Cache. This thingy... I wonder if this is an early version of the coil drive. I don't know what this is. This is just something. This... and this, I have seen these before. These are prototype versions of... These are supposed to be turrets. And I don't think that they ended up... These looking turrets, I think, are ended up on the outside of Corpus capital ships in Railjack, with, like, the sort of curved... The twin curved things pointing at you. I think these are what the turrets in Railjack look like. But I'm pretty sure this is not what any of the turrets on the Orvalis look like. This thing was supposed to shoot discs. So this is like a disc, and it just sort of shoots them out, and they're stacked in this magazine up here. And so it like shoots out, and like the next one drops in, and it shoots out. So that's what this is supposed to be. This is like a folded up version, and this. These are folded up versions of this turret. Because they love their Corpus things that like pop up and unfold and then shoot at you. And that is very cool. I do love that. This is, another wheeled vehicle. It looks like it might be maybe a server, or maybe these are trays that come out. It's sort of reminding me of like the cart that flight attendants use to like serve meals, like with the trays. There's Corpus writing on here, but I'm not sure what it says. Let me... Well, I really need to get like a magnifying glass, honestly. I say that every time, and then I continue to not get a magnifying glass. But yeah, I'm just gonna bring up the... Come on. My computer's being unresponsive. Alright, well... My computer does not want to cooperate. I was going to try to pull up the alphabet to try to translate this. Do-do-do. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, all of the Solaris, all of like the Fortuna stuff is like a mix between, you know, you get a mix between Solaris and Corpus, which are, you know, similar but also slightly different. So I don't know if any of this stuff has the so we'll get to some of the Solaris alphabet, but this is like clearly some sort of a Corpus thing, so it's got Corpus text on it. Da, 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 da. It's something manufacturing. It's taking too long to translate, and that's yeah. It says manufacturing something. So these are the portable energy shields that actually came out with the Deadlock protocol, I think, or maybe the Jupiter update. You know, they've done a few Corpus like reskin updates, but a lot of the work for those started in Railjack. If you actually watch the TennoCon 2018 demo when they showed off Railjack, or sorry, when they showed off Fortuna, it also transitions into Railjack, and they do, and they it's like a Fortuna plus Railjack show, you know, demo. And when they go into the Corpus ship, the capital ship, it's using brand new tiles, and so they did a lot of work for the Deadlock protocol, which was also used for the Jovian Concord, which came first, I'm pretty sure. But a lot of that work was basically started in Fortuna. So Fortuna uses basically the new Corpus aesthetic. It was like the first time it got rolled out, and then they continue to roll it out to Jupiter and then to the Corpus ships. So the old Corpus aesthetic basically exists in the Corpus Outpost, Corpus Ice Planet, and Corpus, the infested Corpus ship tile set. So yeah, these. So it makes sense that this is in this section, even though it didn't come out until a different update, because a lot of it seems like it was designed with the rest of the Fortuna stuff and just didn't get released. This is another cart, but it's like containing energy. Maybe it transports batteries or something like that, but whatever's inside is like crackling with electricity. And then here you've got like the work trucks. This is like the standard work truck with a Solaris for scale, and these look like different. These look like smaller, more compact work trucks. But yeah, I don't think we ever see one of these in motion at any point, which is a shame. Here you've got Smokefinger's gem carts. These are the exact same sketches we saw a few pages ago, but now they're in color and there's detail. The stuff is added to the they added the stuff. If you look closely, I'm pretty sure all of these gems are actually from the Plains of Eidolon, which is, you know, where these which is, you know, that's where they have they made the gems on the Plains of Eidolon, so they just copy pasted those images, you know, for the concepts here. But yeah, you got Veridos, the Tyr Azurite, yeah. And you've also got Solaris writing on the banners now. And so here, this page is just... So the Solaris alphabet and the Austrian alphabet are the two that I have not studied at all. I have not, looked into them at all. So I have no idea what these say, and I'm not going to bring up the thing to translate it. But it is like a cool cyberpunk-looking alphabet. I do think I like it. I do think it's cool. So here, these look like Sean Bigham drawings to me. So this is like the Corpus freight train thing, and this actually shows up, and these are different. This is like from the top and from the bottom view, and then from the front and from the back. But this actually only shows up in Railjack. So again, we see, a project that was started in the Fortuna update and then not realized until later. These are called freight linkers, actually. And they can appear as objectives in Pluto and maybe other places in Corpus Railjack. But these are basically freight trains, but they fly through space. And then, yeah. If you get one as an objective, what you basically have to do is you board from the end and then you move through car by car, and then in the front you... and as you go through car by car, and as you go through and you, like, disconnect it and cut it off from, like, the train, and then when you get to the front, you disconnect this, and then the ship at the front, like, teleports away, and then... And so then you just get like a chain of disconnected, smashed up cars floating through space, which is cool. But it would be interesting if they sort of expanded more on this, or just had some more. Even had people talking about it. I think if you were hearing about like train heists or something on Lightwave or something. These are more concepts for the buzzard. Again, you have the one in the middle is the one that gets used, and then you have sort of thinner versions here. This is these are versions of the Aquila, which is the dogfighter for the Corpus. This looks like the base version of it. So. Okay, so for each of these, you've got sort of like a base version, and then you've got an attachment. The thing about the Aquilas is that they're modular, and so this is like the base Aquila, and then now in this one you've added like this big fin thing to it, which I'm pretty sure is a weapon. This is a different version of the Aquila, and they've added like this big gun underneath. This is another version of the Aquila, and these didn't get used. This is the one that did get used. But, as a concept, this is like the base version, and this one has like a big thing on the back. Like, I don't know, maybe it's cargo, maybe it's like a cooling component or a power component. But yeah, this is the one that eventually made it in the game, and this forms the base. You only see Aquilas in Jupiter, just in the sky, and you can shoot them if you want, but they don't do anything. And then in Railjack, what you see is the Weaver, the Basilisk, and the... what's the third one? But the three fighter units, they are Aquilas with attachments and add-ons. And so they have different names, because they're Aquilas plus other stuff. Harpy is the third one. Weaver, Harpy, and Basilisk. Alright, so here we've got just some sketches of Fortuna, of like the town. Here you've got, stairs to this upper level. Here you've just got Rudzood standing around with a bunch of fans. Or, not Rudzood, but like a Rudzood-like one. Yeah, here you've got like a little booth underneath a second story thing. This... yeah, I don't know. This looks like... So, the background image for this is like a corridor from one of the old Corpus ships, which that doesn't exist anymore because the Corpus ships got redesigned. So the actual parts of this that are supposed to be shown off are these, the dark gray things hanging down and off to the side. But like the background you're not supposed to care about because it's just a generic Corpus thing. Here's a really cool image, like a perspective shot of like you're in the alley and you see like the tenements and the habs rising up on either side, and then you have the elevator in the distance going up towards the ceiling of the cavern. This is a really nice image. This would be if they like, you know, like this is like a sketch. If they like filled this in and detailed it and colored it and stuff like that, I would love to have this as like a desktop background or something. I wonder if, yeah. Sometimes, you know, maybe sometimes like they'll show a sketch and then they'll show a few pages later there's like a better version of it where it's more completed. I hope we see that. So here you've got this is just a patch of landscape. This is the sketch, this is the finished drawing, this is exactly what I was just talking about, where you have like the sketch and then like the detailed sketch here. This is on top of like white thing, and I don't know if this white is supposed to be like, I didn't finish this part, or if it's like snow and ice. But you've got like this purple fungus, and it's got sacks and like growths and stuff like that. Here's a corpus for scale. And he kind of just comes up to the height of this, like, baby mushroom here. Alright. Here... I'm just going to flip ahead a couple of pages. I just want to sort of see what's coming down. Oh, we're almost to the end of this one. Where are we at on time? Alright, so we're just about an hour. Woof. This one might be... Well, last week we had like a 3-hour stream because it was like a section and a half. This one might be a little over an hour. So, averaging out the same. But we're actually almost done here. But I will take some time to talk about the design history of Fortuna as I'm aware of it. So when we get to the end, you know, we can talk about that. So but yeah, we've got some nice just like landscape shots here. So this is a really great one of just like the fungal forests, and you see like the spore sacs hanging down. I think this gives you and you also get the puffer plants that like propel you up if you stand on them, that like shoot you up in the air. I think this gives you a great sense of scale, despite it having no reference object for scale. But it does, to me, it demonstrates like a great scale here. Here, this one is interesting. I don't know what this is. Maybe this is like a giant landing pad, but this thing is actually a landing pad because you got a ship that's like landing on this structure. But I don't know what this big thing here is. You've got the sun low in the sky with like the clouds. Venus does have a very thick atmosphere. And they sort of, well, yeah. But Venus has like these very thick, opaque clouds. So they did represent that. And then you've got, I guess, flashes of lightning here. So the Orbelis is supposed to be like an Eye of the Storms type situation. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But here you got some just like nice sketches of the Fortuna interior. This looks like the part right before the elevator. This actually looks like a similar version of this shot that I was admiring. It's basically it's smaller, but it's kind of from the same angle. Although you don't have like the sides of the alley rising up so close to your perspective, because you're like in the middle of the canal and there's like banks where there's like flat areas. So this is actually kind of more like what you see if you were to stand at this location in Fortuna. I really prefer the pre-New War look for the Orbelis. Yeah, I think there's room to. I think the post-New War look of Fortuna, undeniably, I haven't met a single person or heard of a single person who actually prefers post-New War Fortuna. But the Orbelis on the top also has changed substantially, but I don't know that it's like, objectively a negative. I say objectively, of course it's subjective. But, like, you know, I could see liking the green, the thawed out Orvalis, but I also, like you, prefer the cold Orvalis just because, I'm just more used to it, I think. But I guess I don't really see a problem with it being more green and thawed out. Here you've got more sketches in, like, the Keith Thompson style of just, like, some coolant equipment, like, in the canal. Here you've got, I guess, a nice sketch of, like, the landscape with, like, the pointy rocks. You don't see too much of that. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the rock shapes in the Orvalis are interesting. They do have, like, very distinct forms, which is, I would guess, due to erosion, just because of, like, the incredible strength of the natural forces there. The wind and the storms and stuff would probably lead to some very interesting looking rock formations. Here you've got... This looks like a med bay or something. This is Anne Fortuna, but it's, like, colored deep red for some reason. There's, like, some tables here, which makes me think it's, like, a surgical center or, like, a medical center. But you've also got this bench or a bar with someone standing behind it. So this is interesting. Nothing like this exists in Fortuna as far as I know. It's an interesting little room there. And then here you've got a giant golden thing, like a golden orb with, like, liquidy bits of metal spilling off of it. And there are, you know, versions of this. So this could either be the pearl, which is, like, this big golden orb that you can find out on the Orvalis, and it's being studied by the corpus. Or, if you look in some of the craters, there's, like, a golden orb with, like, spider tentacles of gold, like, coming off of it. Like tangled hairs or something like that, or wires. So that's probably more of what this is. And we never get any explanation as to what that's about, by the way. There's a lot about Fortuna and about the Orvalis that is, like, you look at it and it's so complex and weird. You're like, someone at DT has written down, like, why this is what it is, and that person is probably Adrian Bott, from what we've heard, from, like, interviews and stuff, discussions with the team. Adrian appears to be the writer who's in charge of just keeping track of what does what. But, like, you can tell that there's, like, some rationale, but they've never communicated it. It doesn't come across in any of, like, the, none of the dialogue or the fragments or anything, or, like, codex descriptions describe, like, what's going on with the craters, with the, with, like, the gold things in the bottom of them, or, like, what the pearl is. I assume the pearl, like, it may be related to that, like, whatever's going on with those craters. But yeah, some of the craters are, like, and I think it's also going to be, like, related to the Weeping Towers, but none of this is explained. The Weeping Towers are kind of explained. But yeah. You've just got a big... I've seen these sketches too. These are all Sean Bigham's work. Just some big... So there's actually, like, a person for scale here. There's, like, a tiny little person here. And then you've just got some big machine or building or something like that. And here's another building with, like, a ramp. Maybe these are used, maybe they aren't, but yeah. You've got just, like, door panels, panel pattern, door opening / closing animation, just showing that off. Here's 4 meter, 6 meter, and 8 meter wide doors. They're labeled up here. And here you've just got, like, a big door. This is used in a few places. I don't know exactly where. I think near reflector control, maybe. There's a place like this. You know, I mean, there's a lot of like Corpus installations and stuff out there. So, yeah, we're done. This is the last page. Just some more big Corpus buildings. So yeah, and here's an Excalibur for scale. Here's an Excalibur for scale. There's another Excalibur for scale. Why are there 3 of them? Unfortunately, there's no notes in this section. I was hoping that we might get a little more information, but I don't. There's like no notes, or like in the concepts. So that's a shame. But yeah, so I mean, this just shows, these 2 pages show that the old Corpus aesthetic was very smooth and didn't have any details, and then here you see this has lots of details. Like this is like a big ramp coming down, and then you've got these golden parts sort of clipping onto the outsides. You've got these black parts inlaid. You've just got like you can tell there's like many different layers of material here, and there's like jagged. Hey, Ninja Master, no notes, only vibes. Yeah, we're just getting vibes off of this. But yeah, like there's many different sections here. You can tell maybe some of them move, they interact with each other. And this is like what I would call like the new Corpus aesthetic. I say new, even though it's been many years at this point. But the old Corpus aesthetic, this would basically be like one piece of material. It would be like one smooth, like a plane, like a square rectangle, just like ramp going down, you know? And then maybe they'd paint a little pattern on it. But, you know. So I think to make things just more visually interesting, more like, I guess, video gamey, they changed the Corpus aesthetic, and the Fortuna update was when they started doing that. And so they clearly spent a lot of time, because there's this page, this other page, there's more sketches that I've seen in like Sean Bigham's online profile where they spent a lot of time thinking about Corpus buildings, vehicles, units, and just making them more complicated, really. But like, you know, have more pieces, do more things, more moving parts, and it still looks very Corpusy, which is why, you know, you might not even notice that now we have 2 different versions of Corpus. There's the Fortuna Deadlock Protocol, Jovian Concord version, and then there's like the Corpus Outposts and the Corpus Ice Planet, which is like a ruined version of like the Corpus Ice Planet, and the infested Corpus ship tile sets are like ruined versions of at the time existing Corpus tile sets. The Corpus Outpost is the only like existing real Corpus tile set that's left that uses the old aesthetic. The old Corpus look was also just very gray and silver. Yeah, they do add in more colors. Could be a difference in the styles of the art of the directors. I assume I mean the art directors, because they did have some turnover around this time, if I'm recalling correctly. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it could be like a difference in preference, but I think, like I said, it's more video gamey. At least that's how it seems to me. And so I think they were just like, let's make it more visually interesting. I don't know that it was like a personality conflict. I think they just did it for like those reasons. Corpus Board of Directors, I see. A difference in the Corpus Board of Directors. I guess it's possible, but Frodbeck... So Frodbeck is like the only director of the board that we know of, or like head of the board. He was like, I mean, from the time he was introduced, which was in the Hunt for Alad V, up until like, well, so in Ambulus Reborn, his ship explodes because he was on it for some reason with Animo, and then Animo gets destroyed. And it's ambiguous at that time if he survived or not, but then during the Jovian Concord, Alad V is like, oh, I'm like still competing with Frodbeck and like, talking about stuff like that. So it's implied, at least to me, that Frodbeck did survive that incident, but we never hear anything about him, and so you have Parvos Granum coming back, which is implied to shake up power within the corpus, but we don't see much. We don't really hear much discussion on that. And then there's the new war, in which any number of important people could have died because it was a system-wide war. And there's a few people we know who survived the new war, like Nephanio, Parvos Granum, but there's the queens, or the queen, the Grineer Queen. We know that they survived, but Frodbeck, could have been killed or made irrelevant when Parvos Granum came back, or he also could have died in the new war, or just anything in between. We don't hear a lot about Frodbeck, just generally speaking. But yeah, the current state of the Corpus leadership is really up in the air. Nef is more showy. Yeah, so you make a good point that Fortuna is Nef's domain. It's his main kind of domain, and I think it's implied that his ship, the ship that Nef lives on, spends most of its time in orbit of Venus, close to the Orbivalis. And then the Deadlock Protocol was Nef's initiative to revamp the entire Corpus fleet. So, in that sense, this aesthetic is tied to Nef, but this also happened to Jupiter, because Alad V came back to Jupiter and rebuilt his gas city in the Jovian Concord, and that also includes what I call the new Corpus aesthetic. So, I don't think this is specifically tied to Nephanio. If you forgot about Jupiter, then yeah, you could say so. But other than that, I don't think so. But yeah, so I'll just take a little bit of time to talk about Fortuna and the Orbivalis specifically, the landscape and how they wanted to do it, because for anybody who knows anything about Venus as it currently exists, it's a planet with a very thick atmosphere. It's closer to the sun than the Earth is, so it receives more radiation and heat and light, but it's got a very thick atmosphere that traps all that heat, so the surface is extremely hot. I think it's I'm gonna pull this number out of my ass, but I think it's 900 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius. It's not important, but yeah, okay, yeah, I was actually true, right. It's 870 degrees Celsius. The pressure is insane. Well, I'll just Google that again. Geez. How do I convert this to atmospheres? Oh, that was easy. So the pressure, on Venus's surface, because of its thick atmosphere, is about 90 atmospheres, and one atmosphere is our normal atmospheric pressure as we experience it on Earth. So it's 90 times more the weight of the air on top of you. It is comparable to the pressure found 3,000 feet underwater. So if you go 3,000 feet underwater, that's what it's like being on the surface of Venus. it's really just inhospitable. Every time we send something there, I think the Russians are the only ones who have successfully managed to do it. And they just make their satellite out of like tank materials and send it down to the surface, and it lasts for like an hour or two before it disintegrates. Just because just Venus is, I mean, it's a completely inhuman, unimaginable type of setup. So they never changed the star chart look of Venus. Is Orvelis just a patch on the surface? Yes. So Venus is like basically just inhospitable, and it's extremely hot. Is like one of the main things to remember. And so DE, who generally doesn't care too much about scientific accuracy, I don't necessarily think that they need to. It's their game, and that it's clearly that's like the angle that they've developed their own. They're not like super hard sci-fi. And like from my point of view, I mostly just care about like consistency. So if they were like very accurate on some things and then just completely out the window on the others, then I would be like, well, that's annoying. But this is just the pattern that DE has, is that they're not super accurate, and that's like scientifically, and that's just what it is. So, but they did try. They were like, well, obviously Venus is very hot. And so they were like, okay, so they're like Oricon terraforming of some sort has changed Venus to be very cold. They didn't include anything here in this section, which I guess makes sense because this was all. Whoops, we went too far. We're in the Ostron part. I guess it makes sense that they wouldn't include stuff that was like in a completely different direction. Let me see if I can do. If I can't find it in like a little bit, then I'll just give up. Okay. Tiny. I actually have it saved somewhere, but I'm there's no way you can make the mixed damage type scientific. See, you think that, but they introduced alchemy, and the dialogue of the alchemy game mode is well, I mean, I would say that it's implied that that is just actually how damage types, like the damage is like that's just how the elements work in the Warframe universe. And maybe the Void has something to do with that, maybe not. Maybe it's just some like layer of science that we don't have access to. But like they were like, oh yeah, no, this is like fundamentally how these like heat and electricity work, is they combine to make radiation. Like they really go out of their way to say that. So so yeah, I don't know, like, but the damage types are scientific. Yeah. But yeah, so they talked about this on DevStream a couple of times about like how they were going to do this with Fortuna. And so their original concept was that they would have these like ice balls form in midair. They'd be floating in the atmosphere, and they would accumulate ice, I guess, from like the air. They would like accumulate moisture, and it would freeze. There'd be like a nucleus, and it would be like super, super cold. And stuff would grow. It'd be like floating in the sky, and it would like, I guess, accumulate moisture from the air, and it would grow and accumulate and get bigger and bigger and bigger until it was like a giant iceberg in the sky, and once it reached a certain like weight, I guess, it would fall down and like crash to the surface, and it would just be like an iceberg falling from the sky, and there would be a bunch of these. And so the fact that you just have constantly falling icebergs is what would cool down the land. And you know, they would melt and like cool down the surface. That was what they explained on a dev stream to be, and they had a video that showed the process. It was like a series of sketches, and it starts off with like a sphere, which I think is like similar to the pearl, which is the pearl is the golden sphere that you see like off to the west side of the Orbalis, and it's like hovering it's like hovering and it's being studied by the corpus. So I think this is like left over from that concept, because it's roughly that size from what we could tell from the concepts. But yeah, imagine this giant golden sphere floating way high in the air, like hundreds of feet in the air, and it's growing ice around it because it's super cold, and it just like gets more and more ice. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it just smashes to the ground. And that was like just basically supposed to be happening constantly, and that was how Venus was supposed to be cooled down. And then they were like, I mean, they scrapped it because that is really wild. Like, that's one of their weirder concepts. Would have been interesting. I think it would have been cool, but they were just like, we're not going to go that far. So now the explanation, such as it is, because none of this is really explained in a super thought out way. So you've just got a few comments from some characters and like comments from DE on live streams. But the towers, the Orican the Weeping Posts. This is the only good. I don't know why there's not better art of them. Because there is concept art for the Weeping Posts. I just haven't seen it. They're just not in this section. But these things, there's several of them all over the Orbalis. And what they do is they emit coolant out the top. And then this one is emitting too much coolant, and it's sort of like frozen and, calcified and covered the whole thing. But they emit coolant out the top, and then it spills out and it forms like lakes and rivers. And so all like the fluid, the liquid on the surface of the Orbalis is not water, it's coolant. The coolant is also apparently very toxic, but that's a different thing, And this is an Orican solution. This is what the Orican did. And so because the towers are responsible for the cooling, the terraforming is only active in the in the vicinity of the active towers. And so the rest of Venus is implied to be still as hot and hostile as ever. And you can see if you go to the edge of the map, there's like a wall of wind and clouds. And so that like stops you from going further. And so the whole Orbalis, the part that you can access and you can explore, is like the eye of a hurricane, because the surface of Venus is like all these clouds and wind. It's like in a constantly stormy atmosphere, and the Orbalis is like a calmer part of it. I mean, the Orbalis still has lots of like wind and weather and stuff like that. I'm flipping to this image because this shows like the clouds, and it shows like weather going on. Like, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be lightning. It doesn't really look like lightning, but I don't know what else it's supposed to be. But yeah, so the whole Orbalis is like the eye of a hurricane, And then outside of it, it's just like stormy and turbulent, and you basically can't go there, or you'll just die. And it's also super hot because the cooling only works when the towers are active. The fish also regulate some stuff. Yeah, the servo fish were created by the Oricon, and then there's like most of those are gone, and so there's like the Corpus versions of them that the Corpus made because they still need to do stuff like that. So there's servo fish in the coolant, and they all perform various functions. They sample it. They make sure that the chemical levels are right. I don't know specifically, but like the fish, if you go to the servo fish and like examine them and like look at the description. Let me actually just pull that up because I do have that a section for that on the Oricon archives. I have a list of all the fish. Whoa, what's going on here? It's under item descriptions, Orvalis resources, fishing resources. Yeah, so like cheromotes, which are like the Oricon lobster type looking things, they reconstruct the biomaterial used to regenerate Oricon structures. Yeah, so the towers, the weeping posts, like all Oricon structures, are made of like biological material, and I suppose the coolant is also organic, which I guess makes sense. So yeah, echo winders have cameras that just record data. Surveillance drones. They have krillers are krillers kill things, which is I guess is why they have that name. They just like they hunt for anything that could be. It says organic threats, which I don't know what organic threats you would have in the coolant, but they like swim through the coolant and look for things to kill. The longwinders repair leaks and clear blockages. Myrowinders survey for impurities. So they're all yeah. So yeah, you're right. The fish, they do stuff. And there's like a complex system that is regulating the climate and the terraforming, and the weird thing is when it comes to like the scrubbers have brains 32 quintillion times more powerful than modern computers. Yes, scrubbers. So scrubbers are supposed to analyze the growth of microbes dwelling in the aqua system to monitor toxicity levels. So I guess there are microbes growing in the coolant, even though it's just like extremely toxic. But of course, microbes, bacteria, and archaea famously live in extremely, extreme environments like deep sea vents and stuff like that. And like the hot springs. So I guess it makes sense that you would have, especially because the coolant is an organic material. So it makes sense that you'd have microbes of some kind growing in there. But yeah, scrubbers, the exabrains, according to their description, can process 1 billion gigathreads per second, which, according to Ninja Master, is 32 quintillion times more powerful than our modern computers. Which that sounds right to me. But yeah. So but yeah, so the reason why Venus is like frozen, which is also like not the optimal, like how you'd want the terraforming to go, right? You wouldn't want it to create Alaska. Or like Siberia, I guess is a more approachable metaphor there. But so what they said on DevStream was that the Oricon, well, because like the Oricon have been gone for 1,000 years, And what they said was that like the towers were on and they were terraforming and they were cooling, and then because of the collapse, they've just been operating autonomously for like 1,000 years. And what that means is they like, over the years they just overcompensated and no one is regulating them or anything, and so they just keep cooling and cooling and cooling, and now it's frozen. That's what they said on like a dev stream at one point, which doesn't make sense. Like, when you start the game, or sorry, when you do the Vox Solaris quest, which introduces you to it, Nathaniel is turning on the towers, and he's in the process of doing that, and he's like turning on the last one. So it's clear that they weren't running, that they were off and they had to be turned on. So I would assume that in the lack of direct, I would say, textual evidence or anything like that, we basically just have to guess and theorize with what makes sense. And so I would say that the reason why Venus is frozen is probably because Nathaniel doesn't know how the towers work very well. And this is canonically that this is like canonically true that the Corpus, they try to understand this Orcan technology, and when they get it, and even when they can operate it, they still don't really know how it works. And so if let me see, let me double check what Vox Solaris, they're gonna move this into. Did they move this into like the main storyline yet? Because I know they're going to. Let's see. It's not here. I think it might be. Alright. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually not from what's actually in the game. This is from the Fortuna demo at TennoCon. In 2018 and 2019, they had these very elaborate like TennoCon demos with like a lot of specific dialogue to show off like new things. And they showed it off a lot. They showed off Fortuna and Railjack. Both of them like long before they would actually come to be released, and they were changed a lot in that time period. So the dialogue and mechanics that were shown off on those TennoCons didn't end up making it into the real thing. Nowadays, after that point, they show off stuff that is basically very late in development, and so everything they've showed off after that has been almost basically word for word the same. The Duviri TennoCon demo had some extra dialogue that wasn't just like a few extra things that weren't in the final Duviri release, but Duviri also changed a lot in its own development. But yeah, they usually show off stuff that is like much closer to release, at least in terms of like the big things. So, which is to say that in the 2018 TennoCon demo where they showed off Fortuna and the Orb Valis, they had a bunch of dialogue that didn't end up making it into the final game. And one of those is when Yudiko says that the Orb Valis was a firestorm when we arrived. And that makes sense with the idea that after the collapse, the towers, they all shut off, or, maybe slowly wound down. But Orokin technology, generally doesn't work unless it's being supervised in a lot of cases. I guess the stuff in the Void is like kind of an exception, like the Void towers. But so after the collapse, the terraforming towers, they just stop working, and Venus goes back to being the terrible place, the really hot place that it is. And then Nefanyo shows up 1,000 years later, and he's like, I'm going to try to get this stuff working again. So he turns on the towers, and according to Yudiko, in this, semi-canonical demo, the Tennokan demonstration, it was hot. It was all hot when they got here, and they had to cool it down. And the reason why it's icy is because, and this would be my guess, is that Nefanyo's operation of the coolant towers, and the Solaris operation of the coolant towers, as commanded by Nefanyo, isn't very skilled, and so they're running them too much, and so they're overcooling and making it icy. And Nefanyo is probably fine with that, because it's cold. It's at like the colder edges of like human tolerance, but the hot part of Venus is not even remotely within human tolerance. So by cooling it down to, whatever it is, minus 40 degrees, that's like much, much better than having it be 900 degrees. And then of course when Ballast takes over during the New War and Narmer, he is an Orokin, and he took at least a little bit of interest in Venus, because you can see they're now making like a giant monument of his face at Temple Fabrication. And so, Palace is able to be like, you guys are idiots. This is how the terraforming is supposed to be programmed. And he like does it right, which is why you get like a very temperate ecosystem after that point. During the New War and post the New War, it stays like that. You get like a grassy Orvalis, because that's what the terraforming is actually supposed to do. But I agree with a lot of people that, it's more endearing to have the cold Orvalis. But yeah, outside of the Orvalis, the rest of the planet is very hot, just like it is now. The one thing that never really gets addressed is the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is not breathable. It is, like, not only is it, like, it's got, like, sulfur in it, like sulfuric acid in it. The carbon dioxide levels are crazy. It's not breathable, but it's also, like, just not survivable. Like, even if you walked outside and you had, like, an oxygen tank, you would die. Even if, they've cooled down the temperature, and, like, that's fine, but there's, the atmosphere itself is deadly, and yet you have, they explained that, like, the Solaris, that's why they have the rigs, is because you can't walk around outside, but you got, like, Corpus guys in their suits, and, like, the SU agent will, like, open his chest cavity to show you his face. Like, that should kill him. And the pressure, like I said before, it's like being 3,000 feet under the ocean. Like, you couldn't even, like, stand. You would just get crushed. And they even reference this, like, I think Hesperon, the mineral, is... I was just there on the Orvalis resources. Where did it go? Yeah, it is Hesperon. No, it's not Hesperon. It's... Oh, it's traveride. Traveride makes a reference to it because it's a mineral hardened by the crushing pressure of the Venusian atmosphere. So this is saying that the atmosphere is so thick and heavy that it literally affects rocks and crushes them and makes them into different minerals. And yet, like, you have, Corpus crewmen walking around, and like the Solaris in their robotic bodies walking around. Like, that seems ridiculous to me. But whatever. The warm cycle is also very short. So the cold-hot cycle on the Orvelis is governed by this, like, orbital mirror. There's, like, this giant mirror. It's giant by necessity, but, like, in-game it's obviously pretty small, and it only affects, like, a small, like... It's just one little mirror in the sky. It's, like, this triangular thing. But it orbits above the Orvelis, and... when it aligns with the sun, then it basically shines a little bit more and, like, warms up the area a little bit and creates, like, the warm part. So it's not like a day-night cycle. I can't remember. I think Venus is, like, a very weird orbit or rotation. So it might be... But, like, it doesn't have I think its days and nights are, like, kind of fucked up. But that's not what the warm-hot cycle is. It's, and it's not connected to the Weeping Towers either. It's just connected to this solar reflector, that they have. Rotation, blah, 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 blah. Oh, what? Oh, weird. So, Venus has a very the planet Venus has a very slow rotation, and it's also retrograde. So it actually rotates in the backwards direction from most other planets, and it rotates once every 243 days, which is actually longer than its orbit. So the days on Venus are longer than the years on Venus, and both of them are around 200 days long. 224 days for the orbit and 243 days for, like, their rotation. So, that's... Yeah, that's very weird. So that basically means that, like, the sun never really sets. I mean, it might over a period of years, because I guess it would probably set, like, over the course of the year, and then rise on the other half of the year. Yeah. So, but the day-night, so they don't really have a day-night cycle in the game, and the hot-cold cycle is just because of the solar reflector, which also doesn't get mentioned by anything or anyone. But there's just, like, a Corpus station called Reflector Control with a giant antenna that you can assume controls it. But yeah, so, there's so many things about the Orvelis that are, like, weird and different, and they have explanations, but DE has not really spelled out those explanations to us very clearly. So, yeah. It would be nice to just to be able to get some answers to these questions at some point. But they were not in this section, which is a little disappointing, because, this is why I got the art book, is because you get a lot of information. I think especially when we were in the sentient section, and it was talking about the ways that the nanites rebuild parts of the sentience. Like, that's very cool, and that's new, like, lore information that we can talk about. And unfortunately, there wasn't much in this section, so that's a little bit of a shame. But next week we're doing the Necrolisk and the Cambion Drift. So, get ready to talk about that. And I think I'll end it, we're a little bit early. We actually filled up most of the time, even though the section was short. So, yeah. Yeah. We're gonna go to Deimos next week and keep going after that. Why does the vortex in the sky change color when the cycle changes? I mean, because the cycle is, because it's like, reflecting the sun, I guess it's like reflecting the light in such a way that it, changes the spectrum of how it, like, appears, I guess. I mean, I don't know. We still don't really know why the solar reflector is there. Maybe it has to do with, like, the farming that they're doing. But yeah, I mean, this is just more examples of stuff that we would love explanation for, when it comes to Venus. But yeah, I guess we'll have to just, like, go to TennoCon and ask DE. But yeah. Alright, so I'm going to end the stream and then see you guys next week. Really quickly, I will also be doing a test stream tomorrow, just doing some more Warframe gameplay and talking about stuff. So nothing super significant, I guess, but just hanging out, playing Warframe and talking about lore. So that'll be like tomorrow afternoon. All right, I'll see you guys around.